Yes.
Okay, terrific. So anyway, what I was saying is I didn't go to Sequinota. I was very excited to go to Sequinota, but I was sick and I thought that I had COVID because I had been exposed to all these people who had COVID, so I didn't go. And then I actually got COVID a week later, so maybe I had some other sickness, but regardless, I was trying to keep people safe, and now I'm healthy, and I am very excited about all the things that you guys found at Sequinota.
Got it.
Okay, and I'm turning off my video in case that helps. Can anyone say if they can see me? Because it looks like I'm just, oh, good.
No,
Okay.
we can't.
But you can't, I don't want you to see me, but can you see my screen? Like, can you see my
Yes, we see your screen, but we don't see you.
Okay. I turned off my video because I wonder if that's contributing. So first of all, if you want to find the Sequinota 4A project, you go to iNaturalist, and you can see right here, I've typed in Sequinota 4A, and you have all of these different projects pop up. And so you pick the 2023 project and you click on About. If you click on View Observations, it'll just take you straight to the list of observations, but you won't get to see any of the interesting stats. So instead, click on the About, and that will take you here to the project page, and you will kind of see the dates and how many people were involved, and you can join the project if you want to, although you didn't have to join to get your observations included. They were sort of sucked up based on your location and the timing. So just as a preliminary matter, I heard lawyers saying that. I thought it sounded so fancy, so I wanted to start saying it. So as a preliminary matter, this was a very successful Sequinota with a ton of people and a ton of observations. So you can see that the first INAT project that we had for Sequinota was back in 2021, and we had a little over 500 observations and 20 people observing, and about 174 species. Last year, we had over 1,000 observations, which I was very excited about, 40 observers, and over 300 species, like 317. And this year, we almost doubled the number of observations. It was definitely a higher number of species, 375 species, and we had more people than ever using INAT. So I would say, like, with 47 observers, and I believe we had about 100 people at Sequinota, that's like almost a 50% rate of people who are using iNaturalist, which is pretty good. I'd like to get it even higher. So join me in downloading iNaturalist and coming to Sequinota next year, and we can kick that up a notch. Anyway, so here's the leaderboard. So you'll see Plishke is like hitting it out of the park. I mean, he does find a lot of terrific things, but a big part of why he's at the top of this list is because he very graciously took excellent photographs of almost every species that came in, or at least all the ones that are being sequenced. And so that's part of why it looks like he found a lot more mushrooms than everyone else, although he is very good at finding mushrooms too. But I mean, you can see, we had a lot of contributors like finding a ton of stuff. And oh yeah, so I was going to talk about the most commonly observed mushrooms. You can see here on the right, it says most observed species. And so I was thinking of this quote, which is like, when you hear hooves, or hoofbeats, think of horses, not zebras. I always thought it's, about common things being common, I guess. So I'm going to show you the common things first. Although, in fact, these may not be the most common species. It's possible that these are both common to some degree, but also very bright and beautiful species. I think you can kind of tell, like, these are species that would tend to grab your eye. So this year, the golden spindles, Clavulinopsis species was the most observed. It was on the list last year, but this year it edged out the Cortinarius iodes, which now took second place this year. It's really, I think there is some variation to what is fruiting and how prolifically it's fruiting, but I think, part of it is what are people paying attention to. But you can see some definite themes. Like, people are always excited about Entoloma quadratum, the salmon pinkgill. And it looks like there was a lot of Leodia species this year. it says Oak Ridge Jelly Club. I like jelly babies too. I guess people aren't calling it babies anymore. But I love calling it babies, and it's fun to boop it. So those were the most common species, but so I thought I would just show you some more beautiful or cool observations. So this was one of the things that I thought was really beautiful. I don't know if anyone's on who found this, but or if anyone knows what this is. Are people talking in the chat? Anyone want to make a guess over what this is? I mean, it's like, you really don't have to, but if you want to. Okay, well, this is not the horses of the hoofbeats. This is a big time zebra. So this was, I'm going to just go back and show it to you. I mean, this is a pretty mushroom. I don't know if you guys would tell this from the picture, but if you felt it, it would feel waxy. The gills are kind of thick and waxy. So you'd think, oh, must be some kind of waxy cap. Is it something is it a hydrosabe or it's something in that family. But it's actually, and it used to be a hydrosabe, but it's been moved, and it is, I'm gonna butcher the name, but it is called Porpulomopsis calyptriformis. Although I believe that there are a few species that look kind of like this going under the name. So maybe next time I'll share. There's like a provisional species, I think that's Porpulomopsis atlanticus or something. So anyway, whatever it is, it's really beautiful and it's really cool. And one thing that I love about iNaturalist, I assume you all can see where you have the VU here. And that is because this is a vulnerable, or it's considered a vulnerable species, and it's actually on the IUCN Red List. So that's always exciting when you find something at a 4A that is, a kind of rare and vulnerable species. So that's great for us, and it's great. Will be cool to sequence that and have that record. I don't know. Mitch, have you guys ever found that at Sequinota before?
Not that I recall. And it may, the Calyptriformis, we may have found it when it was a previous name. So.
Oh, got it. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, it could have been when it was under hydrosabe, but it's definitely a rare species. And so it's, I mean, it's totally possible that I don't remember it from the year before, and it definitely, but anyway. So here you just have another boring little brown mushroom, right? Nothing too cool. It's like, half the people will probably leave these things sitting here. This is Zay's observation. I mean, he actually took a beautiful picture of it. But you can imagine this is really the kind of mushroom that a lot of people might pass by. But it's something cool. So kind of another zebra and another exciting find for us. So this is a psilocybe species, Psilocybe cerulipes, meaning blue foot. And I think you can probably figure out from the picture why it is called that. And this is, all psilocybe except for one species I think contain psilocybins or are kind of psychoactive species. I can't remember the name of the one that isn't, but anyway, most of them are. And this is a really beautiful mushroom, and it's a really cool find. The common psilocybe species in our area is Psilocybe ovoidocystidiata. Could be saying that wrong, but people call them ovoids, and they tend to grow like on the sides of creeks or rivers in kind of crappy environments, and they're really kind of thick, and they have usually a kind of robust veil, and this is just a very different very different kind of creature. So this is really sort of gracile, delicate looking thing, and you don't really see much anything in the way of veil remnants, but you can definitely see the beautiful blue foot, and the mycelium almost looks like blue. So it's just cool. And it tends to grow on decaying wood, but not in the more on like an old log than on a crappy pile of wood chips, the way that that ovoids grow. So it's kind of cool. And I think it was the first time that I think it's the first time that Steve Russell, who was one of our guest mycologists, had actually found psilocybe growing in the wild, which is funny because he is like been doing this for a very, very long time. And so it was like kind of fun that we were able to provide him with this neat find. And I think it was also found on the campus of Sequinota, which is funny because it's a Lutheran camp. So I got some laughs out of that too. Okay. Let's see. Okay, next. So, I love to do quizzes. So this is our quiz and some really nice pictures by Jeff. So talking purple stuff, and you don't have to answer this yet, but this is going to be the topic of our quiz. Go on. So the first guy in our quiz, these are pictures by, I think, is it Richard, blanking on his last name, but I think he's from the Western PA Club. He took some really nice pictures of this mushroom, really beautiful purple gills, and then kind of like whiter stipe and pileus or cap. These pictures are so cool. Jeff took them, and I like how he took them on the black background because you can really see the webby partial veil type thing lighting up. It really pops in this picture, and you can definitely see the rusty kind of color on the gills, and so that's helpful for ID. This is actually this picture I took, and it's not from Sequinota, but I added it in, even though it's kind of cheating because it is from our ModDC project, and I think it's more fun to have 3 purple things that all can be considered lookalikes. So, and this is probably the most delicious of the 3, although 2 out of the 3 are probably reasonable to eat. But anyway, so yeah, this is my picture. So, okay, back to the pop quiz. Hopefully people are not, I'm not too old with my speed reference, but what do you do? What do you do? Do you guys want to try dropping answers in the chat, or does anyone want to just hop on and say what they think it is? You could just put your speaker on if you want to talk, or you could write something. Okay, well, that's okay. Oh, here we go. Okay, thank you, Mandy. B is, okay, so if Mandy said B is deceiver, C is bluet, and Ryan said B is court, C is lepista. So we have a little bit of disagreement about what is B. And yeah, we did not find the third one in PA. I looked in, well, at least if you did find it, it wasn't recorded on iNaturalist, but it could have been. So, well, that's good. It's good when a quiz is hard enough that it's not a slam dunk. So I made this table to share with you guys. And the table kind of gives away the answer because I put them in order of their appearance in the picture. So just to go back, the first is Lacaria ochropurpurea. The second is Cortinarius iodes. And the third is Lepista nuda, or something similar, a bluet, a wood bluet. So in terms of how to tell these apart, actually they have a lot in common, but one thing you can look at is like the kind of character of the cap. So Lacaria has a pretty dry cap that might start off purple but ends up kind of white. Cortinarius iodes, I also included just general Cortinarius because there are a lot of purple ones, but Cortinarius iodes has a kind of sticky, tacky cap, and Lepista nuda tends to have an enrolled margin and can have a kind of tacky cap. Like sometimes you might see leaves that are stuck to it and it starts off purple, but it ages to become more pale. A helpful thing here for differentiating Cortinarius from the other 2 is that the Cortinarius has the webby cortina or cortina that Mitch commented on in the chat. And the other 2 do not have any partial veil material or ring material. The gills on all of them are going to start out purple, but and they're pretty much attached to the stem on all of them. But going back to the picture, the most crowded is definitely Lepistanuta. It has very crowded gills. Probably the most distant is Lookalike. I would call it like subdistant. And the only one that's going to turn a rusty color with age is going to be the Cortinarius, because it has rusty colored spores, whereas the Lookalike has white spores, and the Lepista species has very pale pink spores. And then in terms of the stem or the stipe, Lookalike has a pretty distinctive stipe. It's like so rough that it's like really, you could call it hairy. I mean, you can see there's a lot of texture there. And that's not the case for Cortinarius. I'd say like Lepista might have a really finely fibrillose stem, but it will never be like extremely rough and hairy and scaly the way that the Lookalike is. And then I already went over their spores, but now I'll just tell you a little about their environment. So Lookalike is kind of, it's like in a lot of different places, and it seems to be maybe mycorrhizal with a lot of different things, but Lepista stands out because the other two are mycorrhizal, but Lepistanuta is saprobic. And that's why Mitch, I believe, has been able to grow it in his backyard, right? Weren't you able to kind of grow it in your backyard? And you can buy, if you want to hop on and say how you grew it, you could if you want.
It grew in the wood chips, like naturally. I didn't even try. I got lucky. I've been keeping my eye since it's been wet, and it hadn't showed back up yet, but I'm hoping it'll be popping up soon when it cools off more.
Oh, nice. Yeah. So, and you can, I mean, you can definitely get it on purpose. Like, even if it doesn't come to you serendipitously, like Mitch's did, you can buy the spawn and throw it in chips. And, when you find it, like I found a ton in Gaithersburg this weekend, and it's like they look like giant purple Easter eggs that are like peeking out of leaf litter, and some will just be completely covered by the leaf litter, but some will pop their heads out. So it's definitely a different environment. But I will say that I've also found, I don't know if it's the exact same species, but it looks quite similar. I have found some growing in just Pinus strobus, white pine plantations growing in the needles. So but either way, those are saprobic. They're going to grow on some kind of decaying organic matter. So these are the observations. And this is, sorry, the Cortinarius is not Cortinarius iodes, because I wanted to pick one that actually looked a lot more like this. I mean, honestly, like, I feel like this is a rough lookalike. Like it really does look quite a bit alike. I think Lepista might be a little easier to recognize, but I've seen Cortinarius species that look quite a bit like Lepista. So my bottom line for eating Lepista, if you want to eat Lepista, I would spore print every single mushroom that you eat. Maybe that, unless you're like really comfortable with it. But I would think it's better to err on the side of caution. And the pink spore print will not do you wrong. I think Lookalike Ochra purpurea, right here, Ochra purpurea. I believe it's also edible, and I've heard people say that it is reasonably okay to eat, but I've never eaten it. Okay, one more lookalike for the night. This is a beautiful picture that I had to show from Sequinota. And this is something, well, let's see, here's the underside of it. So, what do you notice? Definitely has like a very scaly cap, very scaly stipe. The scales are, what the word I think you would use for that is recurved, meaning they're like kind of on the cap and then they kind of curve up and kind of curve back. So I think you could call them recurved. And they're brown and then on a kind of white base. You can see the gills here look like they started off white, but you can see kind of hints of pale beige brown, and I think that's a hint to the spore color. So this is not going to be a white spored species, which is important. And then, in addition to the really scaly stipe, like you definitely have remnants of the annulus or the partial veil. You can see the remnants hanging on the edge of the cap, and you can also see them here on the stipe. Now I don't know if these two pictures look that much alike to you, but I see these getting mistaken for each other a lot. And so particularly as they get older, this is a young version of this mushroom, but once it gets older, those really spiky, kind of spiky scales will break apart, and then you know, you might be more likely to confuse them. But you know, overall, yeah, people totally confuse this. And so the first one is a Foliota species that is something in the Squarasoides group. I'm not really sure how many species we have. I haven't done the digging, but I'm 100% sure that this will be sequenced, and we'll get that data for you all when we regroup with the DNA folks later, probably in December. And this is Leucofoliota decorosa. So this, you can't tell because it hasn't really even completely popped its partial veil, but when it does, it's going to have white gills that stay white because it's going to have white spores. But people definitely will confuse these. So really nice photos. Thank you for those people. So that's all I have for my presentation, but I just want to really encourage you all to get out there, because it's really, like, this has been really a good fall. I'm going to turn my video back on now that I think I won't sync my whole slideshow. It's been really a great fall. What was the name of the storm? Like Ophelia? Was she called Ophelia or something? I think we have Ophelia to thank. Or was it called something else?
Ophelia, yeah.
Yeah, so I think Ophelia dropped, at least in my area of Northwest DC to Bethesda, I think dropped more than 4 inches of rain. And it wasn't just like one day, it was like over multiple days. Okay, Alan's saying 3.5 inches in Silver Spring. I could be exaggerating, but I also, maybe I'm not, I don't know. It was a lot. And I've seen stuff, like weird stuff and really cool stuff. And I haven't even been trying hard because I've been completely slammed at work, and have actually been trying to not go in the woods because I'm like really just trying to like do my job. But I can't, because every time I go to the grocery store or try to pick up my child or like literally go anywhere, I have to pull over for 15 minutes and take selfies with puffballs because they're calling to me. So I hope you'll all do the same.